Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Business Insights Q&A webinar. We've got, hopefully on the line, Gregor Lawson is logged in. Gregor, are you there?
I am indeed. Hi, Jim.
Good evening, and Gregor, right from the start, many thanks for taking some time out this evening to be with us. Our an audience of business teachers and students who are keen to hear and learn more about your business, and perhaps have the opportunity over the next 30 minutes or so to ask you some questions. Just by way of introduction, we've had some great questions already sent in on the Facebook groups, and we'll hopefully have time to add those in. I can maybe throw those into the discussion at the appropriate time. But also, of course, we've got the chat window, so we've got an opportunity for anyone to type in a question into the chat window, and we'll make sure that those get addressed. I'll pick those up, Gregor, as we go along. But I wonder whether you could make a start to the session, Gregor, just by giving us a bit of a preamble to tell us a bit more about the story of MorphSuits and Morph Costumes.
Sure. First of all, it's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. I have been working on MorphSuits for 8 years, and it has been an incredible journey. 8 years ago, there were 3 of us. We had 6 costumes and a website we made for $400. 8 years on, there are 15 of us. We sell about 500 costumes. We've got 1.3 million Facebook fans, and we've sold about 2 million costumes in that period. As I'm sure you can imagine, there have been a lot of highs and a few lows. At the core of the business has been social media, a sort of ceaseless focus on innovation, and a fair amount of willingness to take risks. And it's only actually when you do sessions like this that you think of all the crazy things that we've done over the years. But it's all been very good fun, and we've learned a lot, and I'd very happily share all the knowledge that I've gained over the past 8 years, in the hope that it helps or inspires any of the people on this call to do something similar. So if we want to start with the first few questions, let's get going.
Gregor, I'll start with the first one that's been sent in one of the Facebook groups, which is really just a question really about sort of lessons learned. I know it's quite interesting looking back over 8 years of phenomenal progress. But if there's one or two things that if you had your time again, that you might do differently, are there anything that comes to mind that you're prepared to share with us?
Oof, lessons learned. I mean, yeah, there's many. The first that comes to mind is an exclusive agreement with Party City. Party City are one of the biggest costume retailers in the world. They're based in the US, and they've got 1,000 stores. And we initially started off as a web-only business, and we went to our first trade show in Houston, Texas, and met Party City, and they really liked us, really liked our product, and asked for an exclusive agreement in the US. And they offered us a lot of money, and that was basically impossible for us to say no to. However, in saying yes to that meant that we blocked out every other retailer in the US pretty much, and forced them to look into other ways of getting this incredibly exciting new product that no one had seen before. And in doing so, created a lot of knockoffs, as we affectionately know them, who basically copied everything that we did and had spent a lot of time perfecting. And so we basically opened the market to these knockoffs who stole a share of the business, because the barriers to entry for making all-in-one spandex costumes were low. And that was something that we didn't have the foresight of. Now, that is a lesson learned. Whether that is a lesson that I would have actually done differently given my time again, because that deal with Party City gave us the war chest to go and invest in innovation and new people and new websites and expand into different channels. So it wasn't the worst decision we have ever made, but it came with significant costs.
Sure. Is that the one that you lose sleep over when you're replaying the?
I give myself.
I replay events over the years and
I
think.
think we all do. I like to put it down as an important learning experience, but I do kick myself every now and again.
Just picking up on something you said there, Gregor, actually, which ties in with another one of the questions we've had sent in, which is around and it's a key topic for A-level business and BTEC students and also GCSE students, which is around how businesses, particularly startup businesses with a great idea, how they can protect their intellectual property or their IP. Could you take us through a little bit about how you've tried to do that, if indeed you can, and also what the challenges are, particularly in international markets, of protecting?
There's no simple answer here. This is very difficult and very expensive. And as a young business, it's my belief that you pretty much have the option of trying to cross every T and dot every I when it comes to IP, and go for your patents, your your names, your URLs. And there's just a limit. You can do that when you're starting up and you don't have much cash. We looked at this thoroughly and we focused in on the URLs, which are the easiest thing to protect. And we did that in the countries where we thought we had a right to win and we figured we could get to relatively easily, i.e. there was no massive language barriers and things like that. And we protected the name MorphSuits, which has held us in good stead. We had a look at protecting designs. We have a huge number of designs which the majority have been copied almost exactly by certain competition, and we looked at protecting them in different countries, but it's expensive, it's time consuming, and you're in no way guaranteed to win. And so, relating to the previous point about these knockoffs that we basically created, we had the option of taking them all on and working with lawyers to try and stop them, but it wasn't something we were set up to do. It was going to be very expensive and take a lot of time, and instead we focused in on the consumer and outmaneuvering them through innovation. And whilst they're all focused on us, we focused on creating more great products.
Innovation, of course, is that key competitive advantage, isn't it? Particularly for flexible, agile, small businesses. Michael's asked a related question to that just in the chat window. They're asking how you differentiated yourself there from these copycats, from these knockoffs to consistently stay successful. What can you tell us a little bit more about the process of this innovation that enables you to differentiate?
Very fair question. The first is licensing. If you have a license for, say Spider-Man from Disney Marvel, then that means that no one can copy you, and that's all the protection you need. Sadly, it's very expensive, and there are incumbent players often who have all those licenses tied up. Rubies is the first to come to mind, who are 500 million turnover, massive business, and are basically plugged into all of the main film studios and have the best licenses, and leave the rest of us to fight over the scraps or try and carve out other licenses. Now, we've actually been quite successful at that. We have spandex licenses for Star Wars and Marvel and Power Rangers, which have been a big chunk of our business, and it's great because no one else can do them, and we have them in key countries around the world. Other than that, staying plugged into consumer trends, and that is whether that is just looking on Facebook, going to the likes of Alibaba.com, who I'm sure most of you will know is just this huge hub of trading, started by a guy, Jack Ma, and that was where we initially found MorphSuits, is where we came across those on Alibaba 8 years ago when it was a very different beast. And just relentless innovation, talking to consumers and talking to customers. Now, I didn't start as an entrepreneur. My background is fast-moving consumer goods at Procter & Gamble, and they always had this saying, which is consumer is boss, and that is something that we have held very close to our hearts throughout the development of all of our products. And that is something that a lot of our competition just don't know about. And that is, listening to exactly what your customers and your consumers want and tailoring your goods perfectly for that. Whereas the vast majority of our competition are focused purely on price, and there were things that they missed that we focused in on. We've heard horror stories about people going in store asking for a morph suit and then being given a knockoff which only had the one zip pulley on it versus two, and that zip pulley coming off and having to be cut out of the costume in the store, which, you know, between you and me, whilst I was sorry for the chap who was trapped inside, it filled me with joy. So that's one that I continually use for any retailer thinking of going with a knockoff, because it is a true story.
So when I pop down to Leeds at the weekend looking for my next MorphSuit, I'm looking for at least 2 zips. Is that right? Minimum.
Exactly.
At Leeds,
Yeah,
Leeds
you need
Market.
that.
Leeds Market, Gregor.
You need at least 7% spandex as well, because otherwise
Okay.
it's like wearing a t-shirt over your head and you can't see.
You mentioned Alibaba. I mean, we've come across Alibaba as we've looked at China both as a source of multinational businesses growing fast, but also as a source of supply to businesses in the UK. Could you explain a little bit more about how the MorphSuits are made and how you get them supplied? How long, for example, does it take to get from a design to something which starts to sell on the website?
Yes, so loads in there. So the idea came to us when, like, I was in Dublin, we had a all-in-one color party, and a guy rocked up in a blue fetish suit that he'd bought from eBay, had zips all over the place. He couldn't really see out of it, but that night he was like a superhero celebrity, which I can talk about a bit more in a sort of around consumer understanding and things. But basically, that was an amazing response. I'd never seen a response to a product like that, and we bought some ourselves, tested them out at a stag weekend, and we were already in business together and decided to have a go at selling MorphSuits, which is what we'd called them. So we went to Alibaba, and we wrote a brief and found a high-vis vest business that reckoned that they could have a go at making a similar product. And we went back and forth with them for about 3 months to get the right blend of spandex and polyester, so you could see out perfectly but no one could see in, so that it fit and made the body look good, so that the zips worked, so that the intricate stitching around the hands was such that it wouldn't fall to bits, and basically it was a quality garment.
Yeah.
That took about 3 months, and then it came to the moment where we had to take the plunge, and we'd put in £1,000 each, and we sent 2,000 of those pounds to buy stock to a lady called Zhang Fanny, which isn't a name I forget in a hurry. And thankfully, we got some stock back from her, which was good of her.
Was she an agent? Was she some kind of distributor, or she?
Yes. She had a link into the factory that that could do that for us, and that was us up and running. We sold out of that £2,000 worth of stock very quickly, and we're generally, entirely cash generative ourselves. We took no investment for the first 2 or 3 years, and now we're just a totally, a different operation when it comes to production and logistics around the world. We've got a variety of factories that we work with who are all Marvel, Asda, Walmart accredited, which are the highest standards in any sort of production around the world, and we make hundreds of thousands of costumes. So there's a time of year where I get very nervous about having $2 million worth of spandex on boats, but that just comes with the territory of being a big global business now.
You often see the apprentice candidates when they've designed a new product. It arrives the morning after from the design agency, and they can't believe what a wonderful product they've created. What was it like? Can you remember when you opened your first packet from I forget the name of your supplier, but the £2,000 stock supply when it finally arrived?
Yeah.
Did you open it together?
You have those sort of moments, but it's not something we've been particularly good at dwelling on. We've had a lot of successes as a business, but we're basically, okay, I don't know if you'd even acknowledge a pat on the back. It's pretty much, okay, that we won that battle, on to the next, which I think is generally quite a good sort of culture to have. It is important to celebrate, and it's not like, we don't have fun, but, we're very, very focused about not leaving any opportunities unexplored. And, to finish off that answer in terms of what happens now, we have a production lead time of generally a month of back and forth, which probably gives us about 2 goes at sampling to create the perfect sample. Then it's anything between 4 weeks to 6 weeks for production, and then another 4 or so weeks on a boat going to a port somewhere around the world, and that is our general sort of lead time. We can be quicker by flying things in, but it adds about $1 per unit cost, which is something we try and avoid.
Ravi's asked a related question to this. He's asking how difficult it is to work, given that you've got a variety of stakeholders there, suppliers and logistics being a key one. Is it? Are there issues with managing, for example, the supplier relationship that you have to address?
Yeah, I mean, it's up and down our route to market. There are, interesting negotiations, relationships, and challenges. The boot is just on the other foot when it comes to me negotiating with our suppliers as it is when I'm negotiating with our customers. And when you've been in the industry as long as I have, you understand the parameters that you have to work with.
Yeah.
And there is now a price where we will walk away because, when you first start out, you'll work with anyone and everyone to try and get a deal done and pave the way for the future. And we've been sold by some of the biggest businesses in the UK about the incredible volume that they could do with us, which has amounted to absolutely nothing other than a huge amount of wasted time and effort setting up products in their systems and things like that.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how your routes to market? You mentioned routes to market. The audience would probably think of those in terms of the different distribution channels. So, for example, notice you're selling directly from the website. Obviously, in different territories, you might have distributors or retail partners. What's the mix, and does it vary by market?
Yeah, so we started out and we were web only, and that was a beautiful, simple existence. We were the only place that sold MorphSuits back then, so highly profitable sales and great demand. Over time, we've been called by more and more customers around the world who have asked to take our products, and we did deals like the one on Party City, and since that expired, we work with a variety of the biggest retailers in the US, such as Amazon, Walmart, Party City, as I mentioned previously.
Yeah.
And that's about a third of our business. A third of our business is direct, which in this day and age is website and Amazon third party. And then there's a sort of independent distributor channel, which is sort of mums and pop stores and big distributors who will fulfill those mums and pop stores. And those three channels are basically our business, and vary slightly in terms of their proportion, depending on what country we're talking about. And that's it. And whilst we're not in as much control as we were when we started, we get to a hell of a lot more consumers, because even in this day and age of the internet, there are still consumers who like to touch and play with the product they're about to buy, and we cannot be in the Party City stores without doing business with them, and that is good business with us. But yeah, there is less control, and MorphSuits fly in certain retailers and do less well in other retailers, and that's one of my big challenges, to try and make sure that we work really well in the vast majority of channels that we work in, because it's always bad for you to, lose customers.
Sure.
When you're a small business like us, and we have experienced some of that, and that can leave big gaps which are difficult to plug.
You mentioned right at the start of the preamble there, Gregor, the importance of your social media presence, and I guess that's been a one constant as well, starting out web only and starting out with a rapidly growing Facebook fan group. And you mentioned also that the customer engagement piece has been a key part of continuing to get their feedback on potential new products. Could you tell us a little bit more about how important Facebook and or other social media channels have been to the team and to the business? Yes.
So Facebook, like us, is a very different beast now to what it was back then. Back then, every single fan we had, we communicated to with every post we did. So we calculated a neat little business model, which was, for every fan that I pay for, I get about another 8 fans for free, because their friends will see that post, or they'll talk about it. Look at this, guys. And that was a great way to grow our fan base for a relatively small amount of money. And then we would get a proportion of the hundreds of thousands of fans that we had who would come and buy from us over the course of the year, because the quality of our communication was good.
Yeah.
And that was a really tidy little business model until Facebook changed their algorithm, which I still believe is one of the great heists of
Tell me about it.
the 21st century, whereby, you know, they sucked us in. We spent hundreds of thousands of pounds getting those 1.3 million fans, and then Facebook tell us that we can no longer communicate with them all with every post that we do. So we then had to pay, and that meant that we could no longer make our business model work. We had to pay for every post. So organically, a standard Facebook post would get to like a few hundred people now, even though I have 1.3 million people on my Facebook page. And so it's taken a lot of perseverance, and we've launched new products that have the same sort of impact as MorphSuits, and when they've got that sort of viral shareability, we can make Facebook work, but it's very difficult. We have persevered with Instagram and Twitter, but it's just a slog. And, you know, unless you're dealing with significant numbers, it's very difficult to make it pay for itself. And some brands are set up for certain social media is better than others. And for us, you know, we've made our bed with Facebook, and that is where we continue to play, but to a far lesser extent than we did in the glory days of that business model, which I spoke about. I've seen many small businesses try and do all of them, and they end up doing all of them relatively badly and not shifting the needle to the extent they need to. And I think, you know, that's one lesson that I've learned, which is just, you know, focus on the one where you've got a right to win, and do it well. Because if you try and do Twitter in the same way that you do Facebook, you piss off all the Twitter people. And similarly, you know, if you try and do Instagram in the same way you do Facebook, they're just like, look, what is this, you know? And you need to be cognizant of that.
It's tough, isn't it? And the social media landscape is changing by the second, all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So a little bit more about, so this is fascinating, Gregor, absolutely fantastic stuff. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you, from where you are now, how you identify the international markets that you think you could win in? This is a key part of the studies for A-level and BTEC and GCSE students, understanding how an existing established business that's had lots of success but wants to expand internationally or continue to enter new international markets. What are the considerations that you go through when you determine which ones to go for?
So good. I can answer this one pretty comprehensively. So, you know, we started in May 2009, and that's like, so we started, and this was basically planned to be a ski holiday fund. We hoped that we'd sell enough MorphSuits to be able to go and ski every year somewhere fun. That's Halloween. We sold £20,000 in one day, and
20,000 in one day.
In one day, yeah. That was. Yeah, and I don't even remember. We didn't even pop champagne. We were just like, okay, great. Okay, how do we make this bigger?
Yeah.
And then that was when we sort of realized, okay, we probably should leave our jobs, because all three of us were basically, you know, working till 2 o'clock in the morning every night, because we didn't have the guts to leave our jobs. I was at Procter and Gamble, Fraser was at BT, and Ali was at Barclays, and we enjoyed those jobs. They were good jobs, good companies. And so we didn't have the guts to leave immediately, but over time we realized that we were onto something. We did $1 million turnover in our first year, and we started to miss out on opportunities such as these trade shows and things like that. And that's when we, you know, had to leave our jobs. And in doing so, we focused in on three things, because we obviously had a formula that worked in the UK. And so we expanded globally, we expanded our range, and we expanded the channels. Now, we've already spoken a little bit about the channel expansion. In terms of how we expanded globally, it was so simple. We basically reskinned our UK website and tailored it for the US, Canada, and Australia and New Zealand, which were the easiest, biggest opportunities on our horizon. You know, they all spoke variations of English.
Yep.
We had pals there who we could test the market with very briefly, and you know, it was kind of a no-brainer. So, you know, really obvious. And then we just put stock in warehouses in those countries, and then plugged them into these reskinned websites with the URLs which we'd paid for when we first started out. And that was us up and running. Now, this was something which, as little as 5 years previous to starting MorphSuits, would have cost us millions and millions of pounds. And that was in the space of pretty much 6 months. And then they all worked pretty well from the beginning. And then we added in, you know, Germany and France and Holland and basically all the European countries. And that gave us, you know, sales in a big chunk of the sort of developed world. And that was our global expansion, and it was pretty obvious. I remember one January we were like, wait a minute, what on earth is going on in Germany? Because the rest of the country and the rest of the world is, you know, pretty sleepy in January. And Germany was kicking off due to this thing called German Carnival, Fasching as it's known. And that's our second biggest sales event. And we didn't even know about it. We just sold out basically and had to buy in loads more stock because it wasn't going to last us till summer.
So basically,
then we started
the strategy there, just to summarise that, I know a lot of students are fascinated by that example. That's the existing products. To new markets. So you just reskin the website. It's the existing MorphSuits.
Yes.
Got it.
Sorry, I missed a bit of that. I was just unplugging to see how it was without headphones. So if you don't mind repeating.
No, that's fine. There was a little bit of feedback, so hopefully we're still okay. So that the basic idea was you were taking your existing MorphSuits but found new geographical markets for those, and the way you did that was to reskin the website. And obviously there's some communication work there, but essentially you're selling into developed economies that share many of the same attributes of consumers in the UK.
Yes, exactly. And as I mentioned, we had friends in most of these countries who we sent some MorphSuits to, and it was literally as simple as, you know, show them to your mates, take some pictures, send it around, who confirmed that the sort of desire to be a celebrity superhero, which is basically the consumer insight that we identified at the first time we came across an all-in-one spandex costume.
Yeah.
You know, and who doesn't want to be a superhero celebrity? You know,
just admit, it is tempting.
You're a superhero wearing spandex, you've got X-ray vision, meaning you can see.
Yeah. Hello?
Yourself, the inner thesp, basically. And that was the same for, you know, our core audience of 18 to 26-year-old blokes around the world.
And you mentioned this German carnival, and a few minutes earlier, Gregor, you mentioned Halloween. Does that suggest that this business is pretty seasonal? Does it draw on particular days of the year in terms of the peak sales there, in terms of how you have to organise your business?
Yes, massively seasonal, which gives us some cash flow challenges, because there is often a very big gap when we're dealing with these huge customers in between the time for when they commission product and when they actually pay us for product. So, you know, that's something that we work on with our bankers, and we're pretty used to it now. So, you know, we know it comes with the territory, but yeah, it's very challenging. And in certain months of the year, we make a loss, which is something that no business wants to do. But, you know, in such months where we're paying for all of the Halloween stock, generally at the beginning of the year, you know, there's not that many people going out and partying, so we don't have the same sales on the website and things like that in the months of March and April.
Sure. You mentioned finance, bankers. Am I right in thinking that the business attracted some venture capital or some private equity capital at some stage to help it grow? Is that right? And if I'm right, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But also, did that help? How did that help the business expand?
Yeah, it was during a time when we were going through some challenges. as I mentioned, we had the competition who had started copying us. Consumer demand was diminishing, and Facebook had changed their algorithm, so it gave us a bit of a war chest to try out some other strategies. Our investors were the Business Growth Fund. They valued the business at 25 million and invested, I think 20% is what they bought. And so that allowed us to bring in some people who had skills that we didn't generally in the digital sphere, and a bit of production in China. We bought some licenses. We moved out of a cupboard of an office and into something a little bit bigger, but still nothing like Google. So it was a good thing to do. They also opened up their black book to us, and so we got a chairman, a guy, Ralph Kugler, who was ex-Unilever and was also on the board of Mars, and he was on the board of MorphSuits, which we thought was pretty fun.
Yeah. Actually, that links in really nicely with a question that Sandra has just added into the chat window, which is I suppose, as businesses go through the phases of growth, this inevitably poses challenges in terms of the design and the organisational structure. And you've also already mentioned the culture of MorphSuits. To what extent has the organisational structure and culture changed or emerged as the business has got significantly bigger?
Yeah, it's just, coming from Procter & Gamble, where there were 120,000 employees, culture was something that was spoken about a lot. There was lots of communication, handouts, flyers, all this sort of stuff. And so that's what I'd sort of grown up with in my career. And it took me a bit of time to realize that at MorphSuits, basically the culture was the three founders' personality for the first, 2 or 3 years. Even though there were more than just the three of us, it was pretty much us and how we approached business. Over time, it has changed with more personalities coming in, and also us seeing that things were not right and trying to rectify them. And more recently, we've had a lot of apprentices start with us. So, you really, people either just leaving university or just leaving school, and there's a sort of need to, where you're employing more senior people. They get it, they understand the business environment, whereas we've had to be a little bit more focused in on what sort of culture we want to create as all of us being employees of this organization. What are the done things within an organization, what aren't? Also creating, training programs and things like that. So for a small business, we are, really probably disproportionately focused on culture and bringing on our team and turning them into good leaders, more so than certainly a lot of the other businesses of our size that I talk to.
To what extent do you get a chance to visit similar businesses or businesses that appear to be going through a fast growth phase, to either learn from them or to help guide their progress?
We're pretty. I mean, I don't go to too many other people. I've had good conversations with Skyscanner and FanDuel, who are both Edinburgh-based unicorns, as the Tech Valley speak is for billion-dollar valued startups. But I talk at quite a few entrepreneurial events where it's always great meeting businesses, generally a wee bit smaller than mine or a bit younger than mine. And just comparing notes and
sure.
What.
Just to change tack very slightly, Gregor, not that we're getting at all political about this, but Ravi's asked a fascinating question, which of course is on all of our minds, which is how you think that Brexit will affect your business, and whether or not there are any other external shocks that you may anticipate coming over the next either next 24 hours or a year or two.
I have a very simple sort of mindset to the socio-political landscape, and that is that if they could just make it easier for businesses, that'd be great, because business is hard enough with everything going right politically, and no changes to duty to import product around the world, corporation tax, etc. And there's just a lot of stuff going on at the moment that we could all do without. And my frustration with Brexit is that it's all a big punt, and the guys who drove it are no longer around to see it through, and it's all for 5% upside that may come to fruition 20 years down the line, um, and that's just not worth it. If we treat countries like businesses, it's just not worth it. And so I get frustrated about that. I get frustrated about all the chat about the Scottish indie ref as well. And that's just because very self-interested. My business is hard enough to run as it is without all this stuff going on. And just, yes, some of these changes may make it better, but because these changes take so long to push through, we have to deal with years of uncertainty, and that's pretty unacceptable for a business.
Are exchange rates a big issue for MorphSuits? So you've already mentioned that you have a lot of stuff on slow boats from China, but to what extent do changes in exchange rates impact the business?
We're basically naturally hedged. We have been called by every X-rate expert in the world about, oh yeah, you need to cash in some of your dollars, or keep your Aussie dollars, they're going to be brilliant against the pound in a few years, and it's absolute nonsense. And we could spend hours and hours, and we might get some right, but we'll get some wrong as well.
Yeah. So
as it is, we pretty much just cash in the chips as and when we need them, and we don't worry too much about it. The vast majority of our business is done in dollars, both in terms of purchasing and selling.
Yeah.
And so, that's our sort of main currency, but we have enough of euros, pounds, and things like that to cover other costs that the business has. But, my business is making costumes, and it's so easy to be distracted. And certainly this is another learning, something we thought, this could be worth a few grand here or there if we time this right, but it's just very, very difficult to time it right. So at the beginning of every fiscal, we lock in exchange rates, which we foresee holding or certainly being the average over the next 12 months, and that's what we play towards.
But you're making sales in dollars, and also you're buying your stock and your inventory in dollars. So actually, the two really map against each other, don't they? Hopefully, the sales are more than the costs, but there's a natural hedge there.
Yeah.
This is fantastic, Gregor. We've literally got 3 or 4 minutes left. If you're still okay to stay with us, I wonder if there's any more questions you want to ask into the chat window. I've tried to pick up as many as possible, plus the ones that have been sent to me directly here. I'm getting quite a few here on the text, which is brilliant. Whilst we see if there's any more questions, Gregor, I'll chuck one over to you, which is what's next? What's the next costume? What's the next move for the business that you're particularly excited about?
Yes, so we are still very much, MorphSuits is our cash cow, and will continue to be our cash cow for the foreseeable future. But we have a right to win amongst the 18 to 26-year-old guy. We understand them. Our customers believe that we have products that we can bring to market for them. And so we have focused in non-spandex costumes, because as much as it saddens me to say it, given the fact I've been flogging MorphSuits for the past 8 years, spandex isn't for everyone, for a variety of reasons. And so by selling MorphSuits, we were the main player in a relatively small part of the global costume pie, which valuation spans from anything from 2 billion to 4 billion globally. And so we've moved into non-spandex. We have some great inflatable costumes coming out, which deliver that same sort of superhero celebrity insight that stood us in such great stead in the early days of MorphSuits, albeit not necessarily without the anonymity, but you can deliver impact in many ways. They're just big costumes. And then we have costumes called piggybacks, which is an optical illusion which make it look like you're getting a piggyback from someone, and they're really fun. And then also we're helped by our licenses. This is a good superhero year. We have Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spider-Man basically wears a morph suit. So, and the suit upgrade this year is absolutely awesome. So we're really excited about that. We expect to sell a lot of those this Halloween.
So yeah, then you need them in there for Halloween. That's the key, is
Yes.
it? That's the key. That's the
Yeah,
key thing.
yeah. Halloween, we do about 50 to 60% of our business.
Oh, okay. Wow. And a big slug of that in the new year in the German market.
Yes, and then another chunk then, and then sort of a base level of sales over the course of the year. Very difficult to pinpoint, but it's generally anything from, charity runs to stag weekends to
Yeah.
parties to music festivals.
And would you just on Ravi just asked a follow-up question when we were talking about the manufacturing. Have you ever considered obviously manufacturing is outsourced to overseas suppliers? Is there ever an opportunity for reshoring back to the UK or for owning your own manufacturing capabilities? Do the economics just mean that that's just not a goer?
Yeah, it's something that we don't specialize in.
Yeah.
Nothing would make me more happy than well, my mum's from the borders of Scotland, and when you drive through some of the border towns,
Of course.
there's
Yeah.
these once bustling towns are on their high streets. There's empty properties all over the place, and I would love to take a lot of our production down there, and they have a background in garments, generally woolen garments, but that wouldn't be a big jump to do morph suits, but just the cost of doing business is just prohibitive. We've looked at it. It's not something we can do, which is a great shame.
Well, yeah, it's a commercial call, isn't it? It's a commercial call.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the inflatable costumes could fit me a bit better than the spandex Spider-Man suit. So I've got my eyes on one of those. Will it be a Donald Trump one, or what would you recommend for me?
So I think you'd look amazing in a panda. It's a panda inflatable costume. Okay. It's got it's kitsch but cool, which I think could be on sort of self-brand.
I'm outside your 18 to 26 target market segment, though, or target customer base.
That's something that all businesses should have. You should have a Procter. We call them the prime prospect.
Okay.
Because you should all. It's the sort of 80-20 principle that 80% of your sales come from 20% of your consumers, and they would definitely be ours. But we've had a 90-year-old in a morph suit, so you're younger than that. Yeah.
Sure. I think you're not wearing one as we speak, are you, Gregor? Or you're not? I do recall watching a great, fantastic YouTube video a couple of weeks ago where you appeared in one, looking very smart. And
that may have been a tuxedo, but no, I'm not. I'm in smart casual. I had an important meeting earlier on today, so I'm more smart than I'd normally be.
Can I put the final question? It's one that Sandra's just asked, which I think is a nice way to finish off, which is your business is making costumes. So where does the inspiration come from? Where's where are the latest ideas, the big ideas coming from? Is it part of the team, or is it back to your customer base in terms of their suggestions?
It's a mixture. I mean, it really is a team effort. Global trends, social media. Our friends who make their own costume every Halloween, like there can often be ideas from that.
Yeah.
We bought a company called Digital Duds, which was started by an ex-NASA scientist, and he came with a lot of great ideas, and we've sort of built on a lot of those ideas. There's another guy who comes up with ideas, who took a white morph suit, and he's a spray paint artist, and put this amazing design on it, shared it on Facebook, and I saw it, got in touch with him, and we've been paying him a royalty for his designs ever since, and I think we've paid him about $200,000. And this was a struggling spray paint artist, and this is one of the joys of social media. You hear about all the bad things about social media, and so we have to summarize that, we have basically a squad of people, some who are paid, some who are not, who come up with ideas. There's that old adage that there's no such thing as a truly unique idea, and I pretty much buy into that. The vast majority of ideas are adaptations of something that already exists.
Yeah.
And that is where a lot of our ideas come from.
Ravi's typed in one fantastic final question. I said it was a final question, but Ravi's beat me to it. Just really, Gregor, if you had one tip to give to a young entrepreneur, either listening live now or maybe watching a recording later on, what would it be? What's the one thing that you would suggest to them?
God, there's so many, but without knowing specifics of your business, I think I only need one, and mine would be that entrepreneur. It is often singular, and the success of my business has been on the back of there being three of us.
Yeah.
And I would always encourage. I speak to so many would-be entrepreneurs, one-man bands who are so protective of their idea and sharing equity, or bringing in new talent, and I see them limit themselves as a result of that. Now, obviously, there are a lot of businesses that were started by one person and are wholly owned by one person, and that is fine. But certainly, from my experience, starting with two guys who I was pals with, who had different skill sets to me, different approaches to situations to me, and also had a different capacity, and between the three of us we've made MorphSuits what it is, and I don't think it would exist to anywhere near the extent that it does if it was just one of us. And particularly when I'm talking to youngsters coming up with their new ideas, I would encourage you, if you've got the idea and you're the commercial guy, then if it's a website, look for a pal who's got some web design skills, and cut him 10% of the equity and get going. Cutting your equity is a great way to cover the fact that you don't have any cash. Now, some people will say, look, your equity is the most important thing, but my take is 100% of zero ain't a lot.
So true. Brilliant. Gregor, that at the time has absolutely flown by. Apologies, I've run over, as I always do, but that was absolutely fascinating. I'm so pleased you could share some time with us this evening. Really, really grateful to you. Just a wonderful business, and sounds like there's still loads to do, loads more opportunity for you. So on behalf of all of us, thanks very much. Really, really enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Lovely talking with you all. And if there are any follow-up questions or specifics, it may take me a while to come back to you, but I'm pretty good on emails, so people are welcome to get in touch that way if they want.
We'll gather any follow-up comments and questions, and obviously direct people to go get their inflatable suits and Halloween costumes in good time once the containers arrive from Guangdong, wherever it's landing. Brilliant.
Indeed.
Many thanks, Gregor. Really enjoyed that. Many thanks for joining us, and all the best to you.
Okay, good night. Cheers, Jim. Bye.
Cheers.